For context, hi, as of late, Delta Kruger. Need to get that fixed. I'm the 27, male, year-old lad of this story. I am considered a high-functioning autistic individual, officially disabled by government standards. My mother for a long time, but especially these past 4 years, has been taking in and managing my checks from the government to keep the household afloat, making use of everything but 100 of it, which often got absorbed in moments of crisis as well since I didn't spend much. And while doing so was sowing seeds of doubt and fear into my mind about ever learning to live on my own, stating I was very far from ever reaching that. I myself didn't really try to struggle or push my way out. Even when I turned 18, she offered to sign me up as a dependent, but I thankfully declined. I decided for the good of the family to keep working with them. That changed about 4 years ago. 4 years ago, my developmentally held back brain decided to say, oh, now it's time to teenager. And I suddenly craved independence, looking every which way for a way to flee gracefully. Every time, though, there was some unfortunate situation or action that meant that if I left with my 2 incomes, my mother became my CU, which that has its own irony later on. The family would fall apart, and I'd be dooming all the animals, some of which were never listed on our lease at the time and were hidden every inspection. Now, what happens when you cage a teenager that so desperately wants to be their own thing? They get rebellious. 3 years ago, I got a therapist through my state insurance program, and after venting all the hoops my mom was making me jump through, and all the work that was piled on me due to mother's bum knee and the stupid high expectations of me that would always end up creating screaming matches to her over those 3 years, she finally said to me as of roughly a week ago from this post that literally sounds like a abuse case. I initially dismissed that and said, I'll keep it in mind as we ended the call that day, only to then immediately after get chewed out for jumping on a request my mom made earlier in the day, as she had requested research for something that'd make another lengthy story. But regardless, she basically chewed me out for hounding her in an ill mental state due to the current situation, despite telling me 5 minutes prior to do the research for her. That's when I went back to my room and texted my therapist to start filling out the paperwork. 1 day later, Mom and I got into another spat, this time about the dishes, which were my daily chore. Sure, it was assigned to me, but my drive to do crap for her was dead by that point when my effort could be shot down on a whim even though it was ordered. The argument is hazy in my head for many reasons, but the main one is Mom went for raw the moment I snarked like a teen would. She slammed her way into my room to start grabbing crap and hucking it on the lawn, screaming for me to get out, breaking one of my monitors in the process. Dad stepped in and told her that since I was over 18 and on the lease, that I was legally given 30 days notice, which is when she stopped. Turned to me, said, well, then I'm going to make those next 30 days hell for you, and walked to her room. Dad let me get the few things she did get on the lawn back inside at that point, and I sat down in my chair. Then it dawned on me she played herself. For years, she said that if I went away, she would have to get rid of everything, and I mean everything. It was all propped up by my SC and the income she got being my personal support worker. Well, now, she had given me and the government valid reason with her behavior alone that even if she rescinded the 30-day notice that we couldn't keep our home anyways, it was refreshing. In that moment, I felt courage well up in my chest. She couldn't manipulate me anymore. She fell into what she had made of her life and was blind to my connections I made for years outside the family, constantly slamming them for being liberal. I took that renewed energy to reach out to those friends, those found families, my lovers, and even my grandparents. I looked through my cards and emails and found my disabilities care workers info and told of the situation and burnt the midnight oil chasing my new life while my mom literally pounded the adjacent wall between my bedroom and her bathroom, screaming like a banshee about not hearing me pack fast. Enough. To keep this from going on for ages, I'm going to be brief on the next few stages until now. Grandparents saw this explosion brewing for years, opened arms, and let me take my belongings and my bearded dragon pancake. And while Mother was away on psychiatric care, with my caseworker's help, I got my SD under control. I got guidance on what steps to take next. and they're doing research for intermediary places after my grandparents. Me and my boyfriend are looking into joining together and living somewhere in Washington with my found family chipping in as well. As of today, I'm officially disowned from my family. My mother has not only disowned my grandparents, but also forced Dad to as well. I tried to contact them to drop me off the phone plan so I can keep my phone number, and all I got was a statement of disownment and that further contact will lead to a restraining order. I got a special state-related order to have their firearms reclaimed since Mother is a psychopath and have my grandparents locking their doors now out of fear. I'm waiting for my case manager to get back to me to have my documents extracted from their residence. And basically, all I gotta do is play the waiting game, watching my parents burn because Mom pushed all their connections away. Even my brother, who's stoic as all hell, showed he was ready to fly too. So the main thing to take away from this is, learn to value yourself and judge the words of those even closest to you, for you never know if you're just a pig to your own mother. If people want, I can refine those breezed over parts, but that's enough to get the picture. Peace. As I was printing the paperwork to file for the firearm removal, I realized I still had access to the printer back home. It took all my willpower to not print a screw you message to it, and instead, I just disconnected my CC from the web-accessible printer. Despite blaming me for everything falling apart, she was the one who kicked me out, and I was always taught to not have the last words. Day 2. I have softly realized that if I'm going to be posting an update, it's best to do both a comment version and an addition to the original post through editing. Long story short, the paperwork I filled I just turned in. Got a court time in about 2 hours. Zero court experience whatsoever, so I'm going by the seat of my pants. If it goes well, though, my grandparents and I can sleep a little safer knowing that if they get retaliatory, they'll have to do it with sticks and stones and not 100% pure American freedom, if you catch my drift. 24-year-old female, lived with my ex-roommate, 24-year-old female, for 3 years, and it was great the first couple of years, but this past year has been a nightmare. I'm going to try to break it down as simply as possible. In 2020, when she was moving in, she talked me out of putting her on the lease, and honestly, I should have said no to her moving in just for that, but at the time, we were best friends, and I thought I could trust her. At the beginning of 2023, she went to some classes and met a guy there. They had a thing together, but there was a rule set in place stating you couldn't date within the class. They decided to date anyway on the down low, and then they got scared they were going to get caught, so they ended things a couple months into it. Fast forward to the time they both are graduating this class, the guy has a new girlfriend that attends. My ex-roommate is infuriated by this and kept saying he was doing it to get at her, when really, he just got a new girlfriend and she couldn't cope with that. Fast forward a little bit more, and my ex-roommate and this guy continued to hang out behind his girlfriend's back to the point where they were drinking together one night at a bar, and on the way home, he got pulled over and got to do it. This is where it starts affecting me because she owed me rent right around the time this was going down. And instead of giving me rent, she spent $1,000 bailing him out so his girlfriend wouldn't find out. When I confronted her about not paying rent, she said I was just throwing her mistakes back in her face, and she never ended up paying me back for rent. Then she got in a wreck at some point and still owed quite a bit on her total car. She had gap insurance, but it was taking a while to go through. Instead of waiting, she decided to get into another car payment before the insurance company paid off her other car, so she was paying on both cars and still struggling to pay me rent. I said something about that, and she complained about how she needs a car, and I suggested asking her dad to use his since her dad works from home and uses her mom's car most of the time anyways. She got really mad over this and flipped out about how I think she's privileged or whatever. At some point, while we were arguing, she suggested moving out, and I told her, okay, the lease is up in a few months. We can revisit this then and see if anything has changed. She liked it, so we stayed until the end of the lease, and then we both decided this wasn't working and to go separate ways. She told me she found an apartment in the same complex. She also kept asking to get a dog this past year, and I kept saying no because I didn't think she could afford it. I wasn't going to pay for her to get a dog to tear the place up more. A couple days before her move-out date, She posted on her Snapchat story that she got a dog and didn't even tell me that she had this giant pit bull in the middle of our tiny apartment when I went to move some more of my stuff out. That infuriated me because she really couldn't wait 2 more days or warn me about the dog. I told her what all we needed to replace to get my deposit back, to which she replied over and over again. That's what the security deposit is for. Since she moved in, she ruined all of the blinds somehow, broke my bedroom window, breaking in a couple of times when she locked herself out, tore up the kitchen floor and entry floor, moving the dryer in, tore up the washroom door because it was in the way, poked several holes in the walls, hanging things, and so much more. When she finally moved out, I went to clean the place up a bit and spent 4 hours alone cleaning trash out of her room and cleaning out the fridge that she left packed full of gross food. I also spent a whole day scrubbing the tub, which she left full of gunk, and scrubbing all of the other surfaces. I say she alone because it was getting so hard to live with her that I basically stayed with my BF most of this past year. So I was going to put all of this behind me and move on, but I got a bill in the mail from our old apartment for $1,776. 8 in my security deposit covered $820. So I texted her yesterday and said they sent me a bill for $956. Are you able to send half? To which she responded with a bunch of questions asking everything they charged us for, and I answered and sent pictures of the documents with receipts for everything. I knew in my gut she wasn't going to pay anything, but she straight up said, okay, so looking at what all the deposit covered looks like damages and cleaning expenses other than the vent repair, which was $520. I don't feel like I'm responsible for the utility fee or the carpet cleaning because that was on the lease as your responsibilities. You also told me you were going to get the carpets cleaned. So I will send half of the $520. $86 for vinyl replacement. I don't feel like I'm responsible beyond that. Basically saying screw you to me because her name wasn't on the lease. I also never told her I would get the carpets cleaned because I asked her to, and she said that's what the security deposit's for. She sent me $260 and that's it for all of this. She moved in after I was already living there, so that security deposit was mine alone, and it's very frustrating that she just straight up didn't care to ruin this whole friendship over this. So after she sent that, I felt defeated, thinking I can't do anything about it until I remembered we have a phone plan together. So I looked up how much I owed on my phone, $400, and in the policy, it says if you cancel, you're still responsible for any fees on the phone. So I called them and canceled it and made sure to already remove my card info and my auto pay and told them to bill my ex-roommate for it. Since it was under her name and she doesn't care, why should I? And that ensures that she can't contact me anymore either.